all of these are actually vintage. So if you're looking for something from your childhood, you will definitely find it in my store.
Every Filipino success is the success for all Filipinos. This is the Pinoy Pride. Pinoy Success. Our guest is in the toy business. He started out collecting comic books, then coins, action figures, and later toys. Now, a family business. You can check his website at www.highcollector.com. Learn more about how the value of an old toy or a comic book would cost today. Here he is, Charles Itliong.
Hi, Charles. How are you?
Aloha, how you doing?
Very good. And you brought the whole family with you, right?
This is a family-based business, basically. So we all actually pitch in over here. From my wife down to my two little kids. Let me get my helpers real quick. Hey, guys, come here real quick. Come on. This is my first helper, and this is my second helper.
Hi.
We will call them collector associates. Okay.
Wow.
So that's what they do. They if you ask them any question on any type of topic regarding superheroes or Pokemon or things like that, they know a lot. I mean, especially especially this little one, you could ask him what character this is, and he could tell you what it is.
So what about the Smurfs? Do you remember the Smurfs?
The Smurf? The blue one with the hat and the only pants? Yeah, we know those ones.
Wow!
Charles, what got you started to get into the toy business?
Originally, I started out as a collector. It was just my passion. You know, I started out collecting comic books, and from comic books, it morphed into other things, from coins to all the way to action figures and toys that we currently have right now in the store. There are also statues. There are all kinds of things that I started collecting. I can still remember the first comic book that I got. It was actually Captain America Annual number 8. It starred Captain America and Wolverine. And it's kind of weird because I actually can remember that comic book, but I have a hard time remembering the first time I kissed a girl.
They speak Tagalog?
Konti lang.
But I heard it's kind of pricey.
That is true. Actually, when I originally started collecting, it is pricey. And you talk about $5 and you're talking about $10 and so forth. But certain collectibles actually appreciate in value. So they go up in value. It all depends on the market and the demand of the time. To explain how collections actually become worth something. I call it the 2020 rule. 20 years for anything to actually really become collectible. And then you might add another 20 years for it to actually have value. When we started out as children or as young adults, we didn't have the money to buy certain. But as you get older, 20 years later, you actually have the money. You're wondering, oh, does that item still exist? Will I still be able to get it? And it pulls items from your from childhood. Doesn't mean necessarily because it's 20 years old, it'll be worth something. It depends on certain factors. One of them would be what I call cultural significance. Cultural significance meaning that it had to do something like, for example, everybody knows who Deadpool is. I'll use this as an example. Deadpool basically was a character that was created by Rob Liefeld in the 90s. And when he created that character, his first appearance was in a comic book called New Mutants number 98. Well, believe it or not, until they announced the move that they were going to make a movie, that comic book was sitting in the $1 bill. Maybe it wasn't worth any. But when they made the announcement the movie was coming, it slowly started rising in value. It started going $20, $25. By the time the movie came out with all the trailers and all the releases, that comic book was selling $700 just for itself. But at one point, it was selling at $1. As we know, the Deadpool movie came out later on, I think in 2000 or something like that, which is almost plus years later than when the actual comic book came out. And everybody knows who Deadpool is now. But back in the day, nobody knew who he was. And that's why that collectible item was only selling at $2.
Yeah. So, and you being a toy collector, did you have any transitions from doing that to opening your fabulous store?
See, what happened was that I actually started out having, as a collector, you tend to collect it. And the problem that you end up having is deep storage space. So I actually have 3 large storage units filled with collectibles that you cannot walk into. We're talking 10 by 20 units, okay? And you cannot just walk into the unit. You literally have to move stuff out of the way. So when I got married, my wife asked me, said, honey, why are you paying for these storage units? So I brought her down to the storage units, and she was like, "Sweetheart, you have tons of these items. You have a lot of duplicates of these items. Why don't you sell some of it?" But I told her, "Why don't I do that? Why don't I try out?" So we went, we grabbed some of the collectibles. We signed up for one of the local shows where basically we could sell items. And that first show, I made $10,000 just selling my items. And that's when I figured, well, I've got tons of these, tons of copies, tons of duplicates, toys, comics, sports cars, action figures. I even picked up a few Barbie dolls, and that wasn't perfect. So it came with another collection. But I had tons of these things, and so that's how I ended up actually starting the business. It was to get a suggestion from my wife, and that's where it became a family thing because we got to spend time together. We got to go to the shows. We went to Comic-Con. We see the guys dressed up in costumes. We get to dress up in costumes, and we get to interact. We sit down as a family. We're eating there, in the booth and so forth, and talking story. At the same time, helping customers and making money. It became like a family picnic, so to speak. We've been in business now for about 10 years.
Wow, that's great. 10 years. Well, I'm a cosplay girl. I love Comic-Con.
Awesome.
I've met, all of them over there. I'm actually in the movie Comic-Con A Fan's Hope, Charles. Did you see that?
Yes, I've seen that. I will double check for you there.
I'm Princess Leia in a
Wow.
Comic-Con
Wow,
with
okay,
Stan
that's
Lee.
awesome.
With Stan Lee, met Stan Lee, interviewed him before he unfortunately passed away. And I did the movie, and I'm Princess Leia in the movie, and I have a big close-up face shot of just myself, all by myself.
It's like when Stanley came here to Hawaii. It was the same
Yes.
thing. My whole family went, and we went to go see Stanley.
Oh, he was fantastic. I actually interviewed him. It's beautiful in his office in Beverly Hills, and he had a life-size doll of Spider-Man. Life-size.
I mean, he was a pop culture icon.
Do you sell your things on your website? Can they buy?
Yes,
Even
we
if it's
actually,
a pandemic, people are shopping online.
correct. Well, to be honest, I mean, before I had the storefront, my legal business name is www.hicollector.com. And let me tell you a story about that. Okay, when I first created it, the business, I called it Hawaii Collector. HI Collectors for abbreviated for Hawaii. But what happened was I had people coming from, looking up the website, finding us online and stuff like that. And they would come and see us and say, "Oh, you guys have a cool name." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Yeah. And they said, "Hi Collector." It's like you're calling us, "Hi Collector, hi Collector." It's like, oh, so instead of just being Hawaii Collector, that's how it became known as Hi Collector. And so, folks are here.
Comics and sports. Oh, Blender and Media.
I don't know how many times I've seen a customer almost cry because it's a toy that they cherished as a child and they lost it. Either the parents threw it away or time went on, the toy got broken or something like that. And it just would bring tears to their eyes. It's actually here and they're able to take a piece of their child back with them. But let me educate you a little about collectibles. See, this is the misconception people have.
Okay.
Well, this is a misconception a lot of people have regarding collectibles. To be honest with you, collectibles are only worth what someone's willing to pay. Like I said, there are certain factors which would have to make a collectible. Okay, and like I said, number one would be demand. Star Wars has a huge impact on the world today. I mean, when it first came out back in 1977 till today, it is still people love Star Wars. It is still affecting people till today. However, that's just one factor. The other factor would be demand for the actual item itself. You do have a Comic-Con exclusive, just like me, but again, not very many people are aware of the Comic-Con exclusive, so they may not actually want it. Because the second part of demand basically is desire, and if they desire it or they have an affinity to it. So without these factors in place, you really couldn't get a collectible itself. But I go to the case of Silver Age comics. What are Silver Age comics? Well, these are comics that survived World War I and World War II. Because, of course, during that time when World War I and World War II happened, and comics were out there, because comics started back in 1937, those comic books basically, they were a fear of what? The paper recycling, because they had to support the troops. So what are the first thing you think the parents threw? They threw away the comic books. They're like, these things are not worth anything, right? So of the 10 million copies printed, let's say 10% of it survive. That leaves 1,000,000 copies. But how many of those millions of copies are still in good condition? I will tell you right now, not even 10% of them are in good condition. A very good example is I bring up the example of Action Comics #1. That's the first appearance of Superman. I believe there are only about 8 known to exist right now in very good condition, which can sell upwards of, you're talking over $3-4 million. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, but you see the quantity is there, and then the cultural significance is there. Why? Because Superman was the first iconic superhero that changed the landscape of comic books. And in fact, I can tell everybody he is the pop culture icon because everybody knows Superman. You know, I mean, Stanley kind of
Right.
really pushed him out back in the 80s and 90s with the cartoons, but again, it still wasn't popular with everyone.
Charles, can they get a hold of you and you can ship anywhere?
Yes, we actually ship worldwide.
Oh, okay.
Worldwide.
We actually ship worldwide. We sell on the website, and we do ship all over the world. All of these are actually vintage. So if you're looking for something from your childhood, you will definitely find it in my store.
Thanks,
A lot.
my co-host.
Pinoy success. This is an infomercial production.